Hello! So after a good like 3 people asked me to do a little desk tour, I thought I'd do one. Since this is probably gonna take like at least half an hour, I thought I would talk you through it, because otherwise it's just gonna be really awkward to just see me opening boxes and whatever. So hello to everyone hearing me for the first time, I guess. Let's start with this. So this is the box of colored pencils I've had for at least 15 years. Oh no. I got it, why is it like this? I got it as a Christmas gift when I was a little kid, and I used it a ton when I was small. But like many kids, I used like 4 pencils in the whole box. It's got 2 floors, it's really cool. I used this one for the grass. I used this one for the walls of my house because it was made of wood, and I used this one for the sky, and that was kind of it. So there are a couple pencils here that have been replaced, but some of them are just 15 years old. Nowadays I don't really use colored pencils that much because I prefer things with more texture. Then, oops, sorry. This is the gouache I use. This I've also had for a really, really long time, but Ooh, am I gonna have to drop you for 5 seconds? No. Okay. So this I've also had for like 15 years at least, but I use gouache really, really often, mainly for layering. Basically, the way my art works is I use like one set of material for texture, so things that are quite heavy and thick, etc. But I don't have many color variation with those because they usually cost more money, and they're kind of hard to mix in between, like think nail polish for example. But that means that I have the texture, but I need something to put on top to choose the color of what I'm doing. So for this I often use gouache or some felt tip pens. But gouache is really, really practical because it's water soluble. So even if your box is kind of old, you can still reuse it. It's really easy to mix. It's easy to put on top of things. It's just really cool to use. So yeah, as you can see, I use this box a lot. Since I often work with texture, like I'm saying, since it's water soluble, it's really, really thin, so it can settle into the nooks and crannies of the texture you put underneath it. For example, if I'm using like crayons like this, let me open it. Ooh, there you go. And I add some texture into it by carving into it. Then this, since there's a lot of water into this, it will settle into the nooks and crannies of into the cracks basically of the crayon. So it also adds a lot of texture and contrast, and it's really cool. So yeah, I really like this. Okay, I've pulled these guys down so I can have examples of what I'm talking about, and also that way maybe you can have something to look at while I talk. I don't know. Anyway, these are gonna stay here, I guess. So next thing, crayons. So as you know, probably maybe, I mainly use these as a base. Basically I'm covering the entire page with one or more of these guys, so that way I have a protective layer, because I usually just use printing paper or like sketching paper, I don't know, basically paper that's quite thin. So I circumvent that problem by using normal paper and putting this on top of it. But obviously it's not just practical, it also looks really nice. I really like working with it. I find that having to sketch and draw directly on white paper is kind of boring, because even if your paper has a nice texture, is great to look at, you know, white paper is nice to look at, it's still more boring than something that looks more, I don't know, colorful and fun that you've done already. So it's more engaging for me to work with. And also the act of sketching by oh, I'm gonna show you an example. Maybe you can see here the grooves in the paper that I've done. I can do that because crayon like this is basically made of wax, so I can carve into it to do the lines instead of drawing them like you do with a pencil. So it's basically more fun for me to do it, and it also protects the... This desk is so dirty, sorry. Yeah, it protects the paper, makes it more fun for me to work with. I use this set of crayons specifically. It's the... I haven't said the brand for anything. This isn't like, I'm not selling you anything. If you want to know the brand of something specific I'm using, you can always ask me, but I don't think I'm giving you a reference number for everything. Anyway, so this is what I'm using. I started using these with my... let's walk around. With this guy... Oh, shit lighting, sorry. In like 2018, because I had a box of these that I've also had for years. Like, I think I must have gotten as a gift same time period I got this one, and it was just lying around because I wasn't really drawing back then, and I started using it kind of on a whim because it was what I had. Also, I like this line because they're really hard, so you can make a pretty thick layer on your paper and then carve into it to get that nice texture. You wouldn't be able to do the same with these guys, which are really soft. I mean, look at this red. It's such an incredible, vibrant blue red. I'm basically only keeping this to look at it because it's kind of annoying to use. Like I said, it's too soft to have a really thick layer, and it's not really opaque enough to draw with, and you can't do any detail stuff, so I can't really use it. But I think the only time I used it was to cover a whole paper when I did... Oh, it's when I did my first Kawasaki Rose. Ooh, if I'm referencing something like a technique or a piece of art in particular, you don't know what I'm talking about, you can always ask me and I can like reblog it because I probably already posted it. So yeah, anyway, I've only kept these for the colors mostly because this orange is also really vibrant. Maybe there. See? That's so cool. But they're kind of annoying to use, so they're only really usable if you use them over like your whole paper to prepare an origami paper or something like that, but I only use them sparingly. But again, like the crayon, like the gouache, like the pencils, they keep for years, so you can just have them around. So this is the last of my big old boxes that I like got as a gift 15 years ago. I don't really buy furniture in that form now because I know I'm not going to use every piece in each set, so it's kind of a waste, and obviously it's more expensive to buy a whole box rather than buy the couple guys you need. So yeah, these were old and gifts mostly, but they're really nice and they still work, so of course I keep them. And also they're usually the things I've started with, so I'm kind of nostalgic because it reminds me of when I started drawing again. So like I said, I use these ones mainly for color and not for texture, obviously, because you can mix them in between each other and you have a lot of color variation. I used it with this, the vines, those. It's nail polish, like pinkish, transparent, like kind of nude nail polish, and I used a bunch of green pens over it, so I have one thing underneath for texture, the nail polish, that's why they look a bit raised. Ooh, let me put on the lights over it, maybe. Whoops, so sorry about that. Yeah, you see how shiny that is? That's nail polish. Those pens wouldn't give you that kind of texture, but it does give you good color, so it's nice to mix two things like this basically on top of each other for convenience and also for fun. I mean, you know, I love doing texture, so it basically like adds time on your drawing that you can enjoy. So yeah, I really like using these. Anyway, so let's move on to this. Oh, hello. To this little bit. This is glue I bought one time to try and do that double tissue paper for origami. The color transferred to the paper I was using, so yeah. Not only is the paper super wrinkly, and I used too much glue, I think, so it has this like gross texture and makes a really awful noise. And also there's this design on it now. So yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna use this, but this was my first time trying to make paper by myself. Now I don't follow any instruction, as you know. I just glue whatever paper I think will be nice to glue together. Since we're talking about paper now, I guess I can do a little tour of the paper I use. So I was talking about gluing two papers together. This one is kind of a fail. I'm keeping it because it doesn't take much space, but I really don't know what I would use it for. But one that was successful is this little guy. Ooh, so I can see my hand, so I can know what I'm doing. I'm gonna put it under the lights because it's much prettier. Ooh, sorry. So yeah, for this one I used normal printer paper, and on top of it I glued this one. This little guy. And this is mulberry paper. You can see the fibers. It's really nice. It's so soft to the touch too. I don't know if it's necessarily great to fold with. It's not being advertised as origami paper when I bought it, but it looks so good, and it made this, so you know. It can't be too bad. Anyway, so I combined printer paper with this one. It made something really flexible. So this is for curved origami. If you have two hands, it's easier, but basically you can still move around. You can elongate the little spirals. It's really good. So these are my paper. The mulberry one I just showed you. This is elephant hide. It's pretty popular as a paper for origami. This is the texture of it. It's very whatever to me. It's thicker than printer paper, but it's not as pleasant to work with. The texture isn't that pretty. The colors are kind of whatever. I don't know. I feel like it's overhyped. Sorry to any origami elephant hide paper enthusiasts. I only bought this little sheet, so I'm gonna finish it. I did, what is it? Oh, here. This one with it. It looks really nice, but I didn't really like working with it, and I feel like I could have done something similar with a paper I like working with more. This guy. What's that? Oh, yeah. So this is gloss varnish. Yeah, it's written on it. Varnish. I don't know. It's a glossy varnish. You know what that is. I never really use that kind of stuff because if I want a glossy finish, I usually just use a transparent nail polish because I find it's harder than varnish and it dries faster. And since it's so dry, you can still do things on top of it. But it's not very convenient to cover large areas, which I rarely do because I like my detailed stuff. But for this piece, I wanted the water to have like only one texture, so I wanted to be able to cover it in something that was transparent and didn't have any color or basically anything interesting going on, and I wanted to cover like quite a large area. You can see my hand. So this whole thing is covered with that. You can see, yeah, you can see that this is underwater and it's got the varnish, but then this little branch comes out, it doesn't have the varnish. That's the gold foil I use. It's not like 24 karat gold foil, there's copper mixed in it. Other shit, I don't know. And it's the little flakies. So it's cheaper than the large foil you'd use. But it's fine for what I do. I never really do any detail stuff with that. I use other gold materials for it. So you can just cover your whole area and then you get like the little separation. That's because the little flakies get on top of each other. This would be kind of shit for like professional work. I'm not doing anything professional here. So this is fine. It looks so pretty and it's so satisfying to work with. Basically you use this little mixture. You put it on over your paper or whatever you're using. You let it dry for like 15 minutes and then you dump that on top, and then you use a brush and you brush off the excess. It's so fun to use. You just dump a whole bunch of gold stuff onto your paper and then you have to brush it for a bit. It's so good. I love working with this, obviously. And yeah, I love working with it. I think you were supposed to dilute them in something and then use them as like a paint of some sort. I'm not doing that. Um, so I use them to texture these little like uh, shrubbery thing in my Naruto piece. I think it looks really good because you get like a fun bit of texture, and then I just painted over it with some gouache, some pens, and a lot of things. I think it was mainly gouache and then felt tip glittery pen, and I used the gold foil mixture to glue them down. This is also this mixture. It's pretty nice to glue down thing if you don't want to use too much glue, because it's super thin. So because it's made to stick this, which is also very thin. So if you're working with I don't know, not a lot of space or not a lot of layers, and you want something thin and quick to stick something down that doesn't need a lot of strength to be put down, this is very nice. Then my acrylic paint. This I use a ton. I often mix it with the gouache. It's just really practical to do kind of anything. It's really easy to work with, it's easy to apply, it's easy to mix, it's easy to find anywhere. It's just really practical. Speaking of acrylic paint, I have my lovely little gold acrylic paint. I use this a ton. This is one of those materials I use for texture, like I was saying. I'm gonna have to walk around again. Like, whoop. This one, I use gold acrylic paint to do the texture of these clouds, and I really love doing that. It's really nice to work with and to apply because it's super thick. And of course the color is so nice because it's gold, and you can paint on top of it, you can apply pens on top of it, you can apply anything. Because it's acrylic, it's not water soluble, so you can just put whatever you want on top of it and it'll keep its texture. These I've also had for a long time because I don't really use them. Basically when I was doing my Book of Kells piece, I mixed this kind of gold acrylic paint with blue and red gouache to make the blue and red kind of glittery, and it worked fine. But after I finished it, I thought, oh, I'm gonna do this all the time, I'm gonna need a lot of blue and red. Oh, it's so sticky, so sorry. So I bought these kind of on a whim, even though it worked fine to just mix the gold with the blue and red acrylic gouache, sorry. So I've had these for a while. I've kind of used up the blue because it looks prettier, but the red, I don't know, it looks kind of shit on the paper, so it's just there. I have used them sometimes, but since I've had these for so long and they remind me of how I did my first piece, so you know, it's fine. This this is like this is embossing paper. Wait, what? Oh, okay. You put it on paper. You have to apply first this kind of weird little pen so that it sticks to the paper, and then you go over with heat. They sell this special heat gun thing. I usually just use a hairdryer, but then it works. I don't know what the reaction is, but it hardens and it keeps its texture. It's really textured, and it has this sort of goldish color. I think the color could be better, so I usually end up going over it with something. Again, this is mainly used for texture only and not really for the gold color, but it's really nice because it dries really hard, but it's also really easy to peel off then if you work with the wax crayon base I used. So yeah, it's nice to work with, and again, it's kind of fun to use because you go at it with the little hairdryer and you can see the powder changing into something hard, so it's just mostly fun to use, and again, it lasts a really long time. I've had this for years. Now let's move on to this little thing. The first one is the pen one. This is probably what I use the most often because it has my beloved little gel pens. I love these guys so much. They have such a nice flow when you write with them, and they have, let me show you. This is the white one. I had a full layer of wax crayon underneath that was like this dark purple, and it's so opaque, and the flow of it is so nice. It's just, it feels so good to use, and then the end result, the texture is so smooth, and it's just so nice to work with them. This was a matte creme one, the white one. These are glittery. I have more of the glittery one. Let me just show you how it flows. Sorry. Yeah, see? It's so good. And it's even better to use them on top of the wax crayon because the ink doesn't seep into the paper. So you get the full impact of the color and the glitter. As you can see here, glitter is definitely here. Oh, that looks so nice. Fuck, even on paper. That's so good. Anyway, but it looks even better on the wax crayon because it doesn't seep into the paper, but it does take longer to dry. I think there was that paint? No, the blue one is a gel pen. See, it just sits on top of the wax layer, so you get the full impact of it. It's so good. It's so fun to work with. All the little red and blue flowers were also done using this. It's so pleasant. This is probably the most high impact glitter type stuff I have, so I like to use it in contrast with more matte textures. Like you can see the I keep moving the line the wrong way. You can see the background is this dark, it was gouache I think, and it's really matte, and it contrasts so nicely with the glitter of the gel pen. I used mainly for color and not really for texture, with the little distinction I was telling you about earlier, because you can't really put anything on top of them. So yeah, the final result. So I have a bunch of colors for this reason, but they're also pretty easy to mix. So if you have like a blue, red, and a gold that'll act as a yellow, you can get a lot of different results. Mixing them, the colors end up fine. They're really easy to mix, but they're not really easy to mix mechanically because once you put them on paper, it starts drying. So it's really, you have to be really quick to mix them, and you either have to mix them directly on what you're doing because it doesn't dry as quickly on the wax pastel, but it still dries pretty quickly. And if you move too fast, then you risk scratching your wax layer. So it's kind of inconvenient. Or if you have to mix more than 2 or 3 colors at the same time, which I had to do for Miss Sakura here, for her, the color of her skin, which is way too pale by the way, I had to mix like yellow, a little bit of blue, a bit of pink or red, what's that, anyway, and white obviously. And so you either have to mix directly on the paper, which means you have to mix directly on this little bit, which is, well, smaller than my nail, as you can see, or you have to use something else like a metal dish or whatever, mix your gel ink there, and then take your gel ink with something and put it back on your paper, which is really hard because a brush doesn't really work for that. My little empty mechanical pencil doesn't really work for that, so it's kind of inconvenient, but the end result is so fun, and the colors are just so good to work with, and mainly it's just the fucking gel texture of the ink that has me so captivated. This is the same thing I did here for the yellow covering of the roofs here. I mixed white matte gel pen and a gold one. You get these nice little variation. The texture is just so good. The red is nail polish, of course. These guys are felt tip pens, like the ones I showed you before, except the glittery. I used the green version of this pen for the leaves in here, and it gives this sort of velvety, shiny texture. It's this sort of yellowish green. It's really nice. I really like it, but I can't find these pens anymore, so I've tried to find a couple of alternatives. I have these ones, which Okay, but not as nice. Let me show you. Oh, that purple from earlier is so good. Mainly my problem with these new ones is that they're too opaque, so they don't work as well for layering. Like with the green stuff I showed you earlier, I had a layer of green gouache underneath, so it was just green, no interesting texture that much. But you can layer the pens over it, which made it really nice. With these ones, not so much because it just covers everything. And then I tried these guys, which are even worse because they're even more opaque. So let me show you. It's really nice, it's really glittery, but the texture isn't as fun as the gel pen I have, and the colors aren't as practical to work with as my old felt tip pen. Let's just remove them. Now, a replacement for these original felt tip pens I found that is really, really nice in these guys. These I found completely randomly in the store. They were kind of expensive, but they work so good. Let me show you what it looks like. It's incredible. See this one? See? The glitter is so well dispersed and it's really watery and thin and slightly transparent, so you can layer it on top of things like my original felt tip pens, and you can do somewhat detailed stuff if you want it. You can do really thin line, you can cover, oops, I can't see what I'm doing, you can cover larger areas, and the flow of ink is so good. It's just so nice to work with it. These ones I really like to work with. I work with them in my Izuna piece. I use a lot of these guys for his pants here, the purple-ish thing. It looks kind of like coral. I use something else for texture under it, I'll show you, but I use a lot of these pens and give such a nice effect, kind of pearlescent almost, but also still glittery. They're really pleasant to work with, and they have nice colors, except that like piss gold. But they're the best replacements I found for these earlier pens I was telling you about. But look, I've got the green pen I was telling you about that I used for my unicorn piece. I have the red one I used for my labyrinth. That kind of mimics that red base you use for the real gold foil, which I didn't know about at the time, but it's funny that I thought to mix it with gold. I've got another piss yellow, wonderful. I've got this insane dark color. This one is so good because you can use to darken any other color basically, so I used it a ton for shadows and stuff like that. I have this purple, blue, green, everything you need. I'm gonna show you what color it does. I'm not left-handed, so forgive me. Oh, that's so nice. See? Oh, I'm so glad I found them again. This one I found ish somewhere. It has a really nice color. It's also a gel pen, but the color is not one I have with my usual ones. It's also thinner than the ones I usually use, so it's really good for detail stuff, and it just look at that. I love gel pens so much. It's really nice. I don't use it that often because, again, I don't know where I got it, so I want to kind of using sparingly, but I still have a lot of it. And then I have these two ones. These are also gel pens, but they're so small, and the ink flow is so thin that they're not really very satisfying to use. This yellow one I basically never use, but this orange one I love because I love the color of it. This is a matte one, so it's not glittery, but look at that. It's a really, really light orange, almost pink, and it's so light and pastel, it almost looks fluorescent. So in this box I have a bunch of these little containers that I used to mix stuff in mainly. I so rarely use an eraser because I basically never use pencil or never sketch much of anything, so this one's probably been in here in this exact shape for like 15 years. This is the stuff I actually use. So these are the brushes I use. I buy these small guys, I think they're for children basically, but I like to have small brushes for my hands. I know the longer ones are supposed to give you better balance or whatever, but I don't paint with an easel anyway, and the stuff I'm using these brushes with is like glue or nail polish or whatever, so I don't think the balance given by a long brush would really change anything for me, so I like these ones. They're nice brushes. They're pretty beaten up because I use them with stuff you're not supposed to use brushes with, but they're nice, you know. My empty mechanical pencil. I use this as like a multi-purpose tool for basically everything, to carry stuff like nail polish or other heavy material like acrylic paints. If I want to do detail stuff, I use it to carve into the wax pastel. Anything and everything. It's really lightweight, it's easy to work with, it has a meltable tip that's easy to clean. It's just really nice. These are the fun little things I was talking about that I use for Izuna's little pants here. These, I don't know what they're supposed to be used for. I think like scrapbooking. Oh yeah, the pink one's fun. See? It's so beautiful. It's so shimmery, and it dries like this. It has so much texture, and it dries pretty hard and pretty flexible too, so you can move it around to do any kind of shape. You can leave it as is and leave it to dry overnight, and it has a lot of texture. You can thin it out just to leave like a thin film on the paper, and it has really beautiful pearlescent shine, so it's really nice to work with. And finally is my glitter drawer. I had a huge glitter era. If you were there, you remember. I basically never use it anymore. I think I should be giving it away, like the colored pencils, because yeah, I never use it. And I have all of this. Some of these colors are really nice. I think the last time I used glitter like this was in this piece. Remember what I told you about the varnish? And finally, the best part, the nail polish part. This is probably the thing I like to work with the best. It's not convenient or practical or anything, it's just so pretty. Nail polish gives you that texture and hardness once it dries that basically no other product can give you. Like even really hard acrylic paint isn't as thick and hard and glossy when it dries. And also it has so many fun colors. Like you never find paint with this finish or this finish or this finish or this finish. I don't know. There are so many fun glitters and finishes and stuff that you can find in nail polish, and also I like personally having the same thing on my hand that I use in my art and vice versa. Am I missing a couple? Yeah, I think I'm missing the one I have on my nails actually. I do use it. So yeah, I use this a lot, either for colors, especially with things like these, or as a base, like I explained with the little vines on this piece. And it's really great every time. You can cover a large area, like I did for the moss hair, or you can use it for details. For this, I use my empty mechanical pencil, and yeah, I really like working with them. So that's it. My whole desk and a bunch of other stuff. Thank you for watching. Bye!